And we're live and we're back. This is going to be episode 2 of Dudes B.Debatin. I'm going to be Andrew Garber for this debate. And my good friend, best bud in the whole world, we're so glad he's back, is going to be Scott Watson. Tonight we're going to talk about economics. And we are now like 20 minutes behind what we were going to do because we spent 20 minutes talking about what we wanted to talk about before we actually started talking about what we want to talk about. And so we're going to get into economics. And because economics is such a huge topic, we're going to try to narrow it down to a few things that Scott's brought to the table. And so let's hand this over to Scott and have you tell us what we're going to talk about tonight.
Well, first off, I think we're going to touch a little bit on the what I call the financial Armageddon that we're facing, the credit bubble that is on its way to bursting, much like the tech bubble, much like the housing bubble. When this one goes, it's going to be a worldwide crisis that cannot be avoided. Too big to fail won't work. They won't be able to bail anybody out on this one. We're going to talk about how that affects things, for example, like college tuition and college pay, the prices of things in general. And then we're going to touch a little bit on minimum wage.
Awesome. Okay. So when you talk about a credit bubble, what do you mean? What is the credit bubble?
A credit bubble is when you move beyond an ability to pay back that which you borrow. And then you start defaulting on the payments that you're supposed to be making. Now, all in total, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. But when you've got major organizations that are going to start defaulting and countries that are going to start defaulting because of their inability to pay what they owe, that will pull down the entirety of the economy, and it's going to lead to a worldwide recession that's probably the history books will say is the third Great Depression.
So we're talking when you say we surpass ability to pay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume that you're not talking about if I fall behind on my mortgage.
No. Yes,
okay.
And no. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that pulled down the housing market. In order for our economy to grow, people have to be able to buy. Do you agree?
I'd use the word spend, but I don't know if I'm just splitting hairs there.
You might be. We'll go with spend. And in order for us to spend, we have to have the ability to buy. We have to have the sustenance, to the items to buy, which most people think of as money. I have money to buy stuff. If I don't have enough money, I borrow money. The people who I borrow money from are the only people that make money off that. Okay, that's how money gets created now. In order for a bank to become a bank, they have to deposit a certain amount of money in the Federal Reserve, and in order to loan out money. And then the Federal Reserve says for every dollar that you've given us, you can loan out X number of dollars. Okay. And then they loan out that money and they charge X percentage back to get money back. And that's how they create money. Okay? Almost all of the money that we have is based on debt. When people can't pay that debt, or when, more importantly, when governments can't pay that debt, then the thing that builds our economy stops. And this is all based on the fact that our economy has to have a certain amount of growth to it, which is true to a certain extent, as long as we have a population growth. Okay? But that growth is a false growth, because when you can pay for something without paying for it, you're not as concerned about the price. When you say, oh, look, it's the old adage of, oh, look, I can buy, I can go to Rent-A-Center and just pay $26 a week for this excellent TV, and all I have to do is pay $26 a week for 87 weeks, and I own this TV. If you saved $25 a week for 87 weeks, see, now I have to do math. You'd have $2,175. So you spent $2,175 on a TV that cost $700 at Walmart. And so when you say you don't care about the price because I'm only making these small payments on it, it's the same way with credit. I don't care about what the price is. I don't care about what the price of college is because I'm not paying for it in $3,000. I'm paying $52,000 at an interest rate that I can't ever pay back, but I'm only paying $82 a month or $106 a month.
Well, I want to come back to college tuition, but
We will.
but for the time being, if when a person goes to Rent-A-Center and they end up spending 3 times the amount of the retail price of a thing, and 3 times the amount is probably what you can actually expect to spend if you do a thing at Rent-A-Center. I mean, that's a real number, okay, that I'm not disputing.
I understand.
But isn't what you're paying that extra money for is the convenience of being able to make that lower payment? Is the convenience of being able to make that lower payment not something that's worth money?
It is worth money, and if it's used properly, it's perfectly okay. I'm not advocating not using credit. The problem comes in when you have predatory lenders. We know that there are predatory lenders out there, variable rates and very confusing layers of things inside that. Credit cards that have roll over 26% rates and ridiculous things like that. I believe we're reaching a point of instability, whereby there won't be enough money to pay for it.
Okay. Well, all right. So I mean, there's certainly a parallel, okay, between the dude at Rent-A-Center or the dude with a credit card with 26% interest, right? And again, I'm not disputing that those are real numbers that a person could actually pay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is weird then is that if I stop paying the $26 a week during my Rent-A-Center thing, or if I stop paying, then the TV goes back, right? Then I lose the TV thing.
Mm-hmm.
If
your house.
Well, right. Or if I stop paying my mortgage, then my lender forecloses on me and I lose my house. Credit cards are a bit different, but that's not to say that there aren't collection measures that one can suffer if one chooses not to pay back those credit cards. Okay.
Sure.
I think then, because if we talk about a credit bubble that's going to be parallel to the real estate bubble that we experienced back in the 80s, what happened in the 80s was a mortgage bubble that was built on trying to divide risks with mathematical magic, right? You can't actually divide risk with mathematical magic, turns out.
It's actually not what happened.
Well,
the credit bubble is the housing bubble is a very complex thing that included criminal activity. that nobody's ever going to get punished for. It was straight out fraud. The short version is,
well, how do you call it fraud when someone's approved for a loan that was and this is a thing that happened in the 80s, when someone's approved for $100,000 loan and they make $25,000 a year.
That's not fraud. Fraud is when I have this piece of paper that is a loan that I wrote. I wrote a loan. I said, okay, I'm going to loan Andrew Garber. I'm going to loan Andrew Garber, who makes $25,000 a year, $250,000 on this home. And I'm going to give him a variable rate because I don't trust him. His credit kind of sucks. And you got to remember that it was the Fair Housing Act that made it possible for me to go, I have to give him the money. I can't ask him to prove to me how much he makes. Here you go. Here's your loan. Pay me back. So the banks, knowing that, first of all, in the 1970s, they had a awakening of how to protect themselves from banks, protect themselves from mortgages in general, and make money off of it in the process. And that was mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities, don't understand exactly how you make it. It's like betting on the house. But you know, the idea was everybody pays their mortgage, right? Well, when they started selling these mortgages that were crap mortgages, they had these mortgage-backed securities. What they did was say, hey, this Andrew guy, this is grade A mortgage material. I'm going to pack it with all these other grade A mortgage materials. SEC, you see all these grade A mortgage materials? Yep, I'm going to sell them. And I know that they're crap. They're absolute shit. They're not going to be able to pay for it. You got topless dancers that own 5 houses, and all they were doing was refinancing their houses. They'd go back in and go, I need to refinance my house. I need to refinance my house. Because they didn't pay for it. And eventually what happened was people started not, what you saw was people not paying their mortgage. They just weren't paying their mortgage. And if I don't pay the money on my mortgage, then the people who bought the securities don't make money. So nobody was making money, and it should have been something that was stopped. But again, they covered it up with fraud. They said, no. We're strong. We're good. These are great mortgages. Keep buying them. I want to buy more of them. And they knew it was shit. They knew they were lying to the public. Goldman Sachs especially. Nobody went to jail for it. In fact, most of them most of them bought insurance against their own bets. They made insurance and bought insurance against their own bets to make sure that they didn't lose their own shit. They just lost everybody else's shit. And of course, then you've got people who were renting houses and paying their rent from people who were mortgaged on the house and weren't paying their mortgage. So the house gets taken by the bank. You had people who were given loans that they couldn't afford, and the bank comes in and takes their home.
Well, and
then
that's the long version of risk management, mathematical magic that I was talking about. Right?
There's no mathematical magic about it. They just went, trust me, we're good. There was no math about it. People who did the math went, well, shit ain't working. Which leads to a whole nother discussion. I'm just going to touch on it for a second so we can think about it for later. The fact of the matter is, that's why you hide layers of shit and layers of bureaucracy and cover your own ass. That's what government does. That's what big business does. Continue. I don't know.
Okay. So, well, I'm not. Okay. So, are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still with you. I was trying. Yes.
Saying.
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. So, look. I don't want to spend too much time on what happened with the real estate bubble, because I want to talk more about the current credit bubble, okay, that we're talking about.
Well,
Okay,
they're interchangeable.
Okay. So the thing that started, well, I don't know. Would you say that if people had found ways to pay back the mortgages that they had secured during that led to the housing crisis, we would not have had a housing crisis?
Yes.
All right. So the thing that happened that caused the housing crisis was the guy getting, with $25,000 a year, getting the $250,000 loan that you said
Yes.
was not fraud.
It is not fraud.
So, right. So, but that seems to be the step that we're talking about. Is that different from the step that we're talking about that's happening in the credit bubble now?
No, people are overspending. People are overstretching, but more importantly than people, financial institutions, governments we are currently $20 trillion in debt. Okay, and it cascades down, or I should say it reverses back up, just in the same way that when the housing bubble collapsed, it wasn't just, oh shit, everybody lost their homes. Well, when people lost their homes, couldn't pay for their homes because of whatever reason, then people didn't make money, so companies had to downsize, and it cascaded down. What I'm talking about, and that's just the housing market. When the market for everything, which is credit, the market for everything, when that begins to crumble and cascade down, it's going to take everything down with it.
So
we live on credit.
So let's talk about government's role in both the housing crisis and in the current credit crisis.
Sure.
You know, it seems to me that what you would want then are stricter regulations on the kinds of loans that could be given to people.
But that's racist.
That
was the exact argument for the housing market. It's racist. Because predominantly, according to, man, I wish I had it, because this is going to sound really racist when I say it, but I swear to God I read this. According to the Affordable Housing Act, lower income families are predominantly minority families. So if we start denying lower income families the same opportunities to rent houses or to buy houses or to acquire credit, then that's racist.
Wouldn't the better option then be to have a government program that subsidizes those mortgage payments?
No.
Go on.
The government is already $20 trillion in debt. The government is the worst credit spender on the face of the planet. And you need only to look at places like Greece and Puerto Rico and find out what happens when you spend more than you can acquire.
So, but the government now spends money on housing. Okay, that's a thing that's in our national budget. All right, and it's a really, really small piece of our national budget.
Okay.
All right. So perhaps it's not a matter of, perhaps it would just be a matter of finding a place where we're spending too much and moving those funds around. for example, we outspend in defense the next three nations combined. We could cut our defense budget in half and still outspend the next two countries combined.
Mm-hmm. 270 billion, by the way.
So it seems like for a
270 billion in 2012 is how much the government spent to help lower income families find housing.
Yeah, it seems like we could probably double or triple that dollar amount and help a lot more people.
Okay. Well, first of all, the problem that I have with cutting the national defense spending is twofold. Number one, that is the primary function of the federal government. Now, pay attention to what I'm saying here because it's very important. I believe the primary function of state and local governments is to, by far and away, the state government should be the highest tax that I pay, not the federal government. The states should be responsible for taking care of their own underprivileged people. And the reason that I say that is because there is no just like there's no encouragement for Wall Street bankers to make sound financial decisions because they have the safety net of the public dole, or automakers to make sound financial judgments because they have the backing of the public dole. I can dip my hand into the government, so I don't give a shit how much money I take. Fuck them. It's the government, right? They got money for days. So if you made the state governments responsible for the welfare of their own citizens, then they would take competition a little more seriously about keeping jobs in their state. You would have so much more pull with the state of Indiana's legislature if they were responsible for their own citizens, rather than going, you know what? We got a lot of damn poor people in Indiana that can't find homes. Let's get some money from the federal government. The federal government goes, nah, that's your problem. Deal with it. Because then you have more control over what your life is going to be about. And that's the way the United States was actually set up prior to the 1920s.
Well, but I don't think it makes a difference in the long run whether the money comes directly from the taxpayers in the state to the state, or if it goes from the taxpayers to the federal governments to the states, because most of a state's budget is going to be federal dollars. All right, so I'm not sure then.
I'll give you an example of why. Who are you voting for in the Democratic election? This is very important to understand. Who are you voting for in the Democratic election? You're going to vote for Bernie Sanders. You already told me that. We're going to put it out there. If Bernie Sanders says,
yeah, president. Sure, I'll go for Sanders.
Vote for Bernie Sanders. You know that I support Trump. We're going to discuss that if they're the candidates. When we have two candidates, we'll discuss who we're voting for and why. But my point is this: do you think you're going to get the opportunity to vote for Bernie Sanders? Do you think the Democratic Party is going to let you vote for Bernie Sanders?
I think there's a 50-50 shot.
Probably right about that. But they're not going to let you vote for who you want to vote for. Just like on the GOP side, love him or hate him, Trump has been in the lead everywhere. Trump took all of the however many districts there are in Colorado and got no delegates. The fix is in. Do you think if and we've got no say in it. We've got no say in it. Now, if this was a local election or a state election, how would we as the state of Indiana handle being treated like this? We'd shut this fucking state down. do you think that we're going to garner enough support to shut the country down when
Well,
they
okay.
steal the election? That's
Okay,
my point. That's why it's got to be local.
But elections are different, okay? And we definitely are going to have lots of election-like talks after May 3rd,
But
4th, 5th.
I'm talking. I'm talking about how it relates to the economy. The further away you take the economy from your control, the more you're going to find out that you don't have any control over it. You don't get to decide what happens.
Okay, but what we're talking about now, right, is we're talking about housing. We're talking about the Equal Housing Act, the Fair Housing Act. I probably wrote it down wrong. And we're talking about getting, and I was specifically talking about a hypothetical program that subsidized low-income families for their first house mortgage purchase, right? Because second house mortgage purchase would be silly. Okay,
right.
So we would certainly be talking about primary residence kind of things. Okay, in a hypothetical kind of thing. And you said that we spent $260 billion last year. That sounds like a drop in the bucket. And I said we might be able to increase it by 2 or 3 times, and maybe we'd be able to find that money lying around in a national defense budget. And then you said that, but the national defense is the primary function of the federal government. And my point was going to be, don't you think that even if that's true, and I don't agree with that at all, but even if that were true, couldn't the federal government perform that duty with maybe twice as much as the next country spends?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you know how much money we gave in aid to foreign countries?
Not enough.
You think so?
I think so.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me pull it up. Hang on a minute. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Is your point going to be that we gave too much in foreign aid?
Well, my point is we don't allocate our foreign aid very well. We don't get anything that we intend to get for our foreign aid from a lot of places that we send our foreign aid. So wouldn't our foreign aid be more appropriately spent on domestic aid?
No. I think that there's a place for altruism in government.
Okay. Well, then let me ask you this. Would it not be altruistic to gather up all the Syrian refugees and gather up all our military and go back into their home country and go, hey, all you people that are driving these people out, stop your fucking shit or we'll kill you. Here's your country back.
I don't think that the words "or will kill you" are ever altruistic.
But yeah, they are. Because see, and that's absolutely incorrect. What does altruistic mean?
It means doing something good for the sake of doing something good.
No, that's not what it means. The definition of altruism: the belief in or practice of disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. Now, my point to you is this. If you are stopping people who have no regard or concern for the harm that they do to other people, okay? If you're stopping them, is that altruistic?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if they're not going to stop until they're dead, is that altruistic?
Is killing them altruistic?
No, killing them is the act of stopping them. You have to kill them to stop them. You just said to stop them is altruistic. The greater good will be served. If there are 7 people in a room and one person is a psychopathic, rapist, murdering killer, and he's going to continue to psychopathically rape and kill everyone in that room, and you kill him for the well-being of others, it's altruistic.
I would not be the kind of guy to push the guy off the rail in the trolley car thought experiment.
Okay.
But I would probably also not be the kind of person to pull the lever to divert the car.
But you would be the kind of person that would continue to flip the switches.
No, I would not. That's what I'm saying.
I do not believe that. See, I am the type of person that would go, I'm not doing it. Shoot me, kill me, don't pay me, fuck me, I don't care. I believe that if the right person told you to do it, you would do it. I believe that in my heart.
No. See, and that's the thing that you know, I'm not sure how far I have to go into the trolley car experiment, and I don't want to derail where we're at by going into it.
We've already done that.
Son of a bitch! Curses. Okay. Well then, fuck it. We're going.
Well,
forward.
let's just play with it.
Well then, fuck it. We're going forward. So in the trolley car experiment is there are 2 sets of tracks. There's a trolley car coming barreling down. It's out of control. You're in a place where you could pull a lever to divert the trolley car, and if you divert the trolley car, 1 person gets smushed, and if you don't divert the trolley car, 10 people get smushed. Okay. Right. So, and the question is, do you pull the lever? And you'd say yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you think you would be guilty of murder?
If there was no other way to alleviate the danger to the larger populace, no, I don't think I would be guilty of murder.
Okay. See, in my mind, you would absolutely be guilty of murder because your actions would directly lead to a person's death.
But my inaction would directly lead to it too, and that's manslaughter.
Well, no, well, okay. So the fun part of the trolley car experiment is when we replace the lever with a dude, right? We move the dude from the spot on the track down the track, and we put him right next to us, right? And now the trolley car is coming down 1 set of tracks, and for some magical reason that cannot be explained by physics, if we push the dude off the track and he gets smushed, the other 10 people get saved, right? Okay. So it's the same loss of life, right? Except we're going to move the dude right from down the track to right next to you, and you have to put your hand on him and shove him off. You shove him off.
So what you're saying is his body is the only body that can magically stop the tracks.
Somehow it magically stops the trolley.
Right. In Fairy Tale Neverland, it's the same problem over again. Yeah, I'd push him onto the tracks. But in reality world, I'd jump in front of the train.
Okay.
That's the difference between...
You're fatter than the guy?
Yeah, that's probably true. I am pushing max density. But my point is this. Your world of black and white doesn't exist. I live in a world of reality of evil, reality of perception, reality of what's going on.
But
there's no good answer.
But that's not the point of the experiment. The point is, would you be guilty of murder if you push the guy off the rail, off the ledge, on the rails to have him smushed and stop the trolley car?
No more than an officer who shoots an attacking person who has an axe or is the same can be said if 2 kids are going into a school armed with AK-47s and they're going to shoot 6-year-olds. Am I guilty of murder if I tap them both in the head? No. Their harm is greater than the harm that I'm doing. The harm that would be done is greater than, if I don't push the guy, is greater than the harm that would, or is less than the harm that would be done if I didn't push it.
But we're not talking about harm.
Sure we
We're
are.
not talking about degrees of harm.
Sure
We're
we
talking about whether or not you would be guilty of murder for causing someone because your actions would directly be would directly result in a person's death. And that
Correct.
sounds a lot like murder.
No. Murder is the intent to deprive someone of their life without just cause. Just cause is the difference between the harm that can be done if you don't take the action that you have to take. Now, the thought experiment is flawed from the beginning because it's designed in such a way that it's not a real test of what the question is. You know, if you're suppositioning incredible hypothetical things, number one, I know that pushing this man in front of a train will stop the train. I'm the only one that knows that this is the only guy who I could push in front of the train to stop the train. So I'm the only one that knows that. Therefore, nobody else can know that I stopped a greater harm by pushing him onto the tracks. So in a court of law, that would be murder because it makes no fucking sense. It's not a true test. A much better test is the experiment of, you can switch the tracks, you're going to kill a guy when you switch the tracks, and it all depends on what you do. And I'll tell you another instance why this is true. Having been a medical first responder, I joke, because we have a sick sense of humor, that I have killed people. I didn't kill them. They died despite my best effort. If I didn't do my best effort and they passed away, then that's a problem. Or if I said, hey, you know what I think is going to help this guy that can't breathe? 5,000 cc's of sodium pentothal. I killed him. You know what I mean? But that's not the case. So I go to bed with my conscience clear because I did my very best to stop the harm from coming to this person. If I did my very dead level best to stop the train, to get the guy off the track after I switched the track, but if I just went, there's a guy down there that's going to die, boop, and then didn't do anything, then that's a different narrative. If there was nothing that could be done other than stop these 10 people from dying, then that's a different story. Do you see why that's a flawed thought experiment?
You've missed the point of the experiment, okay? Because it's not about whether or not this is something that would actually happen in real life, right? Because chances are, is there even a fucking trolley car in existence anymore? I mean, come on.
Yeah, they still have them. They still have them in San Francisco.
So the point here is that, and the reason that I thought that it was relevant is because I don't see a difference. The point of the thought experiment is that you will find many people who will say that they will pull the lever, but the same people will say that they will not push the dude. Okay, that is what your typical response is going to be. All right, and the reason for that is because there is some distance between you and dude when you pull a lever. All right, there is a thing in between you and the dude, and it's the lever. All right, when that thing is removed, then it becomes far more personal somehow in our weird human brains. It becomes far more personable. It becomes far more personal to you when you have to physically touch a person in order to cause the same outcome that you would by just pulling a lever. And this is a useful thought experiment when we're talking about things, just to bring this back to where I was trying to go with this before, is when we have things at a federal level and we have things at a state and local level. right, that it seems as though there's there's space. But the idea, but with the trolley car instance, is that experiment is that there in reality is no space, and that in reality it doesn't matter whether you pull the lever or you push the dude. It's your actions that directly lead to the death of a person. And so to bring it back, it doesn't seem to me to matter if my tax dollars go to the federal government and then to the state and then to the local level, or if they start at the local level to begin with.
Well, now let me tell you why they do. Are you familiar with the Milgram experiment?
Yes.
Okay. Same scenario. Okay.
But the Milgram experiment is an experiment on authority. It's not an experiment on distance.
Exactly. And the authority for the government lies where?
You mean in law?
No. The authority that the government derives is derived from the people. The people give the government authority. Okay? And what we've done is we've moved the authority further away from us so that they are further removed from our scrutiny. Just like I tell people this all the time, nobody watches congressional votes. They read a headline about HB that was written, and they no due diligence. They don't go look. They don't go read the law. Plus, let's talk about how laws are written. Let's write a law with 8,000 pages of bullshit so that nobody will ever read it. We'll do whatever we want with that law. My point is this: keeping the money in Indiana to do what Indiana wants to do with that money is much better than giving that money to the federal government and having the federal government go, man, Illinois, New York, and Puerto Rico are bankrupt. So we're going to take the Indiana money and give it to them.
Why is that bad?
Because New York, Illinois, and Puerto Rico should deal with their own problems and learn to pay their own bills and learn to keep their businesses competitive and learn to keep their people employed so that they don't have to worry about paying for it.
Okay, but so don't you think that there is don't you think that there would be a ripple effect if Illinois can't pay its bills on people who live in Indiana? If New York goes bankrupt, surely there's an effect on people who live in other states.
No.
States are made of imaginary lines. How do economics obey imaginary borders?
When Detroit fell apart, did the rest of Michigan go down with it?
You don't think that when Detroit went down, there weren't ripple effects in Miami?
Not nearly the cataclysmic effects that you think there could be. But what I'm talking about is not going.
Are we talking about the auto industry here, where we had a cash for clunkers program subsidized by the government?
Try that one more time. I'm not familiar with that.
Wasn't the Detroit debacle when the automobile makers went belly up? Didn't we have a cash for clunkers federal program where the federal government bought your junky old car for ridiculous amounts of money?
I don't know. Let me look it up. The 2016 cash for clunkers.
2016 cash for clunkers.
Goodness gracious!
I thought that ended. I thought that ended long ago. There shouldn't be any money left in that. I wouldn't suspect.
Okay. The car allowance rebate system, colloquially known as cash for clunkers, was a $3 billion U.S. federal scrappage program intended to provide economic incentive to U.S. residents to purchase new, more fuel-efficient vehicles when trading in a less fuel-efficient vehicle. The program was promoted as providing stimulus to the economy by boosting auto sales while putting safer, cleaner, and more fuel-efficient vehicles on the roadways. The program officially started July 1, 2009. Processing of claims began July 24th, and the program ended on August 24th as the appropriated funds were exhausted. The deadline for dealers to submit applications was August 25th. According to estimates of the Department of Transportation, the initial $1 billion appropriated for the system was exhausted by July 30th, well before the anticipated end date of November 1. Due to the very high demand, in response, Congress approved an additional $2 billion. On August 26th, the DOT reported the program resulted in 690,114 dealer transactions submitted, requesting a total of $2.877 billion in rebates. At the end of the program, Toyota accounted for 19.4% of the sales, followed by General Motors with 17.6%, Ford with blah, 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 Nissan, blah, 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 blah. American car makers with only Ford led to a gain in market shares for Japanese and Korean manufacturers at the expense of American car makers, with only Ford not taking a significant hit. So yeah, you're right. We had a cash for clunkers program that killed the American automotive industry.
The American automotive industry was killed when we were going to pass a bill that was going to mandate that our cars be more fuel efficient. Japan said, holy fuck, if we're going to sell any cars in America, we got to make our cars more fuel efficient. We didn't pass that bill, and Japanese cars were then more fuel efficient. It's still the way it is today. If you want a fuel efficient car, you buy and import. American automakers. I got a
Chevy Aveo that gets 34 miles to the gallon. 37 on the highway.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. So, American automakers went defunct partly because American lawmakers didn't pass the law that they said they were going to pass to make our cars more fuel efficient.
That is abundantly not true. They went belly up because the American government subsidized foreign companies to bring cars in. If the American government had said, listen, Ford, General Motors, you guys need to build these fuel-efficient cars. You've got this much time to do it. And then otherwise, we're going to let the foreign car companies into the market. We're not going to tax them, and we're going to give them big incentives to come over here. Okay? They'd have said that, and then Ford and all the other ones, well, Ford did, but if they had gone, nah, we're just going to keep going the way we're going, then that would have been that would have been them. But they didn't tell them they were going to do that. They said, no. They said, we're going to do this, and we're going to incentivize all these foreign companies to come in here and compete against you guys. Now, the point of the matter is, they didn't even give them an opportunity.
If you're going to argue that the market is going to be able to regulate itself, then this is a great example of a market regulating itself and American industry losing to its foreign competitors based on American laws that were supposed to be passed and that were not passed. Who lobbied to make the laws not pass? It was the American auto industry.
Give me the name of the law.
Sorry?
Give me the name of the law. Give me the name of the law that was not passed.
Dude, this is back in like 2000.
Okay.
No, it was right after. It was right after the gas prices skyrocketed after 9/11. Right. Okay. Gas prices went up. There was a law floating around, a bill rather, not a law, a bill floating around saying that we were going to require our automakers to increase their fuel efficiency to a standard that I forget over a period of time that I forget. It was 10, 15, 20 years, I forget, because it's 2001. The Japanese automakers, of course, heard about it because you broadcast that shit, okay? And they said, holy fuck, if we're going to compete in the American market, we're not going to be able to sell a fucking car over in America and get American dollars if we don't make more fuel-efficient cars. The Japanese cars did it. They thought that because maybe they were stupid, all right, and they thought that we'd already passed the law. I don't know. I'm not Japanese. But that's what they did, all right? They made their cars more fuel efficient, and you immediately saw the imports bring up their fuel efficiency as though they thought that law had passed. It did not. It did not because of the lobbying that the American automotive industry did on Congress. They didn't want the law. They didn't want to have to make better, more fuel-efficient cars. When the Japanese started doing it, they started coming up with new ideas because they found they couldn't compete in the market because gas was still $4.75 a gallon. But as gas prices began to recede, then they felt that pressure less. And then there was the 2008 financial crisis, and then there was a cash for clunkers, and then and again, gas was a big deal in, what the hell were we talking about, 2008, 2009? Big deal in those years too. And the fuel efficient options were foreign cars. They weren't American cars.
Okay, are you ready? Because the CAF standards, the corporate average fuel economy that they set for cars, was actually set in 1970, and it was in response to the oil glut after the disastrous Carter administration did their little shit. And the only thing that happened was in 2002 and 2003, a tug of war between Detroit and those who advocated leaner, cleaner vehicles was the latest battle in decades over struggle over fuel economy. Been arguing over it for years. It wasn't a law that didn't get passed. It was a law that had always been there. They were only arguing about what the standards were and what the standards should be. And they were fighting over it, sure, but they had the technology and they were going to implement the technology. And the government opened up and incentivized foreign companies who had that technology too. Everybody had the technology. They were implementing it in their country because they didn't have any gas. See, the unfortunate truth about capitalism is it breeds apathy. We have tons of shit. That's why we're one of the fattest countries on the face of the planet. We have so much shit, we throw away shit on top of shit that other people would die to have. And it was true about gas too. We're the most powerful nation in the world. We want gasoline. We have the money to pay for gasoline. We're going to name our own price in the global market. Give us the oil. And capitalism breeds apathy. People said this is going to last forever. Just like they said houses are always going to increase in value and credit will always be available. They keep saying these same things. They keep saying these altruisms, or not altruisms. They keep saying these all-encompassing truths that are not truths. They are the standard right now. And that's what happened. If they said, we're going to set these at this, you need to implement this technology, you know, foreign cars can come on in here, but we're not going to give you tax breaks. We're not going to give you subsidies to come in here and do this. We want our American car companies to do it. The American car industry would still be surviving today.
Well, I don't think that the American car industry is not functioning today.
It's really bad. I've got to stop you right there because I have a first-hand measurement of what our economy is doing constantly, every day. It's what I do for a living. Pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you. In the 1980s, the average dry van freight moved for about $1.80 a mile. Okay? Average. Right now, in 2016, the average van rate is about $1.22 a mile. Now, I can tell you with great certainty that the price of running a trucking company did not decrease over the past 20, 30, 40, 30 years, 30 plus years. It didn't decrease. So the price to operate a company has gone up. The price that they pay the company to move freight is falling. The reason that it's falling is because we are moving less freight. The reason that we are moving less freight is because there is less money to buy shit. There's less things to be bought. That signifies to me a decrease in our economy, not an increase. And it's the dry goods index is another good measurement. I read these measurements every morning. The dry goods index is another measurement. That's the amount of raw materials we are importing and exporting to the United States, and it is down by about 18%. A drop in, I think, what was that I read? Don't quote me on the numbers, but a drop in 3% is somewhere in the vicinity of $30 billion in revenue. So this great economy that we've been creating, I'm not going to say over the last 8 years, because it's actually been over the last 16 years. And all the things that encompasses culminate in the fact that the people no longer have control of this federal government, period. And the fact that our federal government is so incredibly large and incredibly encompassing means that you will never find a plug to pull on. You get what I'm saying? And they're going to continue to spend more money than we can ever make. Someday, there's not going to be any of it left. Nobody's going to have any credit. And I think it's coming fast. That's critical.
So if we're so let's wrap this up with let's wrap this up here with
your
that
wife's
thought.
going to beat your ass, isn't she?
It could be a good thing. Look, I'm not sure that I'm not going to try to refute the rate of freight, and I'm not going to try to say that that moving stuff from point A to point B by truck may have seen a decrease. Nor do I ever look at a dry goods index. But I think that if we're talking about the ability to borrow money and the ability to purchase goods and services on credit, I don't think that the ability to purchase things on credit is not a thing to be afraid of. And we certainly have businesses and individuals who file for Chapter 13, Chapter 7, companies that file for Chapter 11 bankruptcies. Donald Trump knows a lot about Chapter 11. And I think that that even in those instances, what we as a society gain in the forgiveness of some debts, is outweighed by the benefits of giving people the second chances that they need. I don't, when it comes to personal bankruptcies, I don't know anything about corporate bankruptcies, but when it comes to personal bankruptcies, the number one cause is medical debt, which brings us to healthcare. The number two cause is divorce. And if you have medical debt and divorced, you're bankrupt, fucker.
I understand. Here's something that I have to get this out before we're done. It's two things real quick. Number one, I'll give you an example of what I mean when I say why credit is bad. Oil. Let's take oil as just a small microcosm of what I'm talking about. Oil went from somewhere in the vicinity of $78, $80, $90 a barrel, something like that, down to $27 a barrel, okay? Hey, great, gas prices are down, woohoo! But what does that mean in reality? Okay, oil in and of itself isn't worth shit. It's buried in the ground, it's dead animal flesh that's been compressed, and now it's oil. Oil isn't worth anything until you spend a lot of money to drill a hole down to it, suck it out, and put it into the forms that you're going to utilize it in, and whatever you utilize it in, okay? The way you do that is you go, oil makes this and this and this. This and this and this is worth this much, which makes oil worth this much. So I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to go, hey, oil's worth this much. I need this much to get it out and sell it for that. So you borrow from the bank, you punch a hole in the ground, you suck the oil out, right? When it's $97 a barrel, you have trillions of dollars worth of credit to buy, okay? Then all of a sudden, it went to $27. The effective relationship of that is, let's pretend for a moment that Andrew had $1 million in his bank account right now tonight. And tomorrow morning, you woke up and you had $7 in your bank account. Just like that, that's the effect. But they've got all this credit. Now they don't have anything tangible to back up this credit. That's what's happening to countries and individuals all over the world. They have all this credit. They're coming to a point where they don't have anything tangible to back up that credit. Number two, chapter 11, chapter 13, and chapter 7. People have a very difficult understanding of the chapters. What a chapter 7 and chapter 13 rather than chapter 11. Chapter 11 is typically used for personal restructuring. But what it is
chapter 11 is for corporations.
No, I'm sorry, you're correct. Chapter 7 or chapter 13 are usually for individuals. Chapter 11 is for corporate. Sorry. But what they're doing is restructuring their debt. They say, I owe this much money. I'm having trouble paying it. I'm going to restructure it in this way, and the court is going to I'm going to keep all my assets. I'm going to keep running my business. But I overstepped my bounds, i.e., I borrowed too much money against what I thought I was going to sell. So now I have to pay back that money. I can't do it in the agreed upon terms. I need to restructure it, and the court's going to supervise to make sure that I pay my people back. See, people seem to think that bankruptcy, chapter 11, chapter 13, chapter 7 means I don't got to pay no money. And that's not the case. The case is you still have to pay it back. You just have to pay it back under different terms in order to keep your business sailing. And
wait,
keep
you think that a chapter 7 makes it so people don't have to pay something back?
No, that's what I'm telling you. So see, when you see
chapter 7, chapter 7 will discharge debts, and you have to pay those discharged debts.
Yes.
No.
Okay, well, I'm reading it right here. There's just different styles of it. Yes, chapter 7, you have to liquidate. In other words, let's take my business for example. Under my business, I have computers that are listed. I have a truck, a semi-truck, and a trailer that are listed. I have some other various sundry items that are listed, printer, fax machine, things that are capital investments in my company. If for some reason tomorrow I suddenly couldn't make those payments, I could do several different things. I can say, chapter 7, the bank's going to come in, they're going to sell all my shit that's attached to my business. They're going to say, okay, all of this is ours, we're going to sell it. We're going to sell it for the most amount of money that we can, and we're going to apply it towards your debt. Then we're going to go to court, and the court is going to assign you a payment plan for the rest of that debt. The difference is Chapter 11.
Whoa. Are you filing for Chapter 7 as an individual, or are you filing Chapter 11 as a corporation?
I can do either because I am a corporation, but I'm a single proprietor corporation, LLC. As a corporation filing Chapter 11, the object is I need to keep my assets. I need to keep the things that make my company money. My company can be solvent. My company can make money. I need to reorganize my debt.
Of bankruptcy, the purpose of bankruptcy, all bankruptcy, is to discharge debt. The purpose of bankruptcy is to discharge debt. There is no bankruptcy in which debt is not discharged.
You're completely wrong on that. I'm reading it right here. It's right in front of my face.
So the word discharged is not anywhere in a Chapter 11.
This is Chapter 7 is a liquidation bankruptcy, sometimes called a straight bankruptcy. The principal advantage is that the debtor comes out without any future obligations on his discharged debts. Okay, so Chapter 7 is discharge. However, bankruptcy does not wipe out most of the mortgages or liens. If a debtor wants to keep an item, house or car, which is security for a loan, he or she must continue these payments. If the debtor wants to discharge the car loan, they must surrender the car to the creditor that holds the lien. So I have to surrender those items of value. For example, that's why when you have to surrender
an item of value if you owe money on it.
Yeah.
But not if you don't.
Well, no, because
see, primary residence.
No. Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah, that's my point. You have to discharge all of the things that were utilized to secure the loan. An example, let's say I go get a personal loan, okay? And they say,
look, my point is, the purpose of bankruptcy is to achieve a discharge.
Well, in a Chapter 13 proceeding, the debtor must pay all or part of his debts from future income over a period of 3 to 5 years through the Chapter 13 plan. Chapter 11 is used by large businesses to reorganize their debts and continue operating. Corporations, partnerships, and limited liability companies cannot use Chapter 13 to reorganize and must cease business operation if Chapter 7 is filed. Chapter 11 cases are by far the most complicated of bankruptcy cases, and as a result, there are very few law firms that handle Chapter 11 cases. Many times, individuals and companies cannot obtain the relief they need under Chapter 7 or Chapter 13, thus Chapter 11 is the best option. Corporations, LLCs, and partnerships are not allowed to file for relief under Chapter 13. Thus, Chapter 11 will be the only option for these. And again, the key here
when
is
they use the word relief, the relief you get is a discharge from debt.
No, it's not. The relief you get is, I owe $7 million. I owe $7 million, and the interest on $7 million is this. I am going to reorganize my debt. I still owe $7 million, but I'm going to change the payment terms so that I can continue operation. If I don't continue operation, my assets don't cover my liabilities. It's the same thing that a lot of the oil companies are doing and the coal companies are doing right now. They're going to continue operating through this $27 a barrel of oil. It's now up to 40. They're going to continue operating, but they are operating at a negative. They're operating at a huge loss right now because they borrowed so much money against money that they're not going to get right now. So they can't pay the money back that they have to pay back.
Uh-oh. Oh, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Why?
Because you cut out for a second.
No.
I couldn't hear the last part that you said. So I don't know what the last part of the thing that you said was because I couldn't hear it.
We'll see if it ends up online.
Well,
but go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna have to wrap up here, and we're gonna have to bring this thing to a close. So thanks everybody for watching this second episode of Dudes Be Debating. I have no idea why we came up with that name.
I don't know. We're gonna try to get a little more organized next time.
Okay. Liar. We're never gonna be organized.
It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. No. It's going to be a series of clusterfucks.
I'm gonna go drink a fucking beer.
All right. Well, you do that like a big boy that you are. All right. So until next time, everybody. See you next time.
See you in the funny papers.